stories that connect us to ourselves and each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid, wild colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. And now, exclusively on KGRA Radio, I give you your host for Soul Wanderings Radio. Here's AJ.
A show about journey stories, and we are hanging out here on the one and only KGRAradio.com. It's heard throughout our universe every Wednesday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, and we get to wander with a new guest each week about their authentic experiences through this human journey. It's so awesome to have you here with us for our live show tonight. Thank you. Get cozy. This is going to be a good one. My name is AJ Rasmussen, and I am an owner and manager of a heart-centered healing space called Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit. And it's there where I get the pleasure and the honor to assist others with their personal journeys, with their healing of the mind, body, spirit, and the heart. And I also get to be your host of Soul Wanderings. If you are listening live with us tonight, make sure you hop over to the chat room hosted on KGRAradio.com. I hang out there every week and I grab your questions that you may have for our guest. And if you guys do find that you have a question, make sure you type them in caps so I can grab them easily. You'll want to be there if you have anything you're curious about. Make sure you go to KGRAradio.com/chat. So I hope to find you guys there with myself and all of the other wanderers. Claire Waters is our guest tonight. When her children were 4 and 2 years of age, Claire learned of their abilities and began her own journey to learn as much as possible about psychic matters and the spirit world in order to assist and support her children with their gifts. Since then, she has written a book called Raising Faith, which is a story of raising a child psychic medium. Please join me in welcoming to the show, Claire Waters. Hello, Claire.
Hi, AJ. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure. And you are joining us from the UK. Thank you, Skype. But it is in the middle of the night there. I just want to give a shout out to you for being awake and spending your time with us this evening, early morning. Claire has written a book, like I said, called Raising Faith, and it is about her daughter, who is a psychic medium, which we will be discussing here in the show. But to start out with, let's talk about you, Claire. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, sure. Well, yeah, my name is Claire Waters. I live in the UK, in Hampshire, which is in the south. And yeah, I'm a mum to 2 children, just a regular mum. But along the way, as you say, I discovered that my children had these psychic medium gifts. Wasn't a topic I was familiar with. I'd never even met a psychic medium up until I discovered about the children. So this has been quite a journey for me to learn all about the spirit world and the world my children were living in, really. The experiences they were having that I wasn't actually familiar with, I didn't understand, initially were quite frightening for me. And so, yeah, I've gone on, a huge journey to learn all that I could, mainly to support the children and to understand what they were going through. And the children are older now. When I first discovered this, as you say, they were 4 and 2. And we're 10 years on now, so we're in teenage territory. So yeah, it's been 10 years of this learning curve and incorporating these gifts into our life. And yeah, we've learned a lot. It's been interesting.
I'm sure it has. And you said that it was frightening in the beginning. I could see how that would be. What made it frightening for you, though? Understanding that your children could see and feel things that you weren't yourself at
Yeah,
the time.
I think it just taps into those, childhood, my own teenage experiences of horror movies and so on, because I hadn't had any experiences with psychic mediums or spiritual matters myself that I was aware of anyway. The idea that my young children could see people in the room that I couldn't see, I just immediately was, well, who are they and what do they want? And what do they want with us? And, all of my old horror movie kind of scenes would come back to me. And I think just naturally that's what happens when, it's something new, it's something you don't understand. And I think, it's pretty common to go to that place of fear. Particularly, as I say, my only real memories of anything like that were from TV shows, which obviously change the story. They exaggerate things, they display it in a certain light for entertainment purposes. And that's not necessarily how it needs to be.
No, it doesn't. But once you figure it out, then it's not as scary, I'm sure.
No, not at all. No, yeah. I mean, couldn't be further from that. In all honesty, I think it's just the most lovely, beautiful gift. I really do. And it does come with responsibilities, and it does come with some visitors that maybe we weren't prepared for. But as a general rule, I think it's just amazing. And it's a blessing, I think. But yeah, it certainly took a bit of a learning curve to get to an understanding where I could see it that way.
Right, I'm sure. I want to talk more about your children in a minute, but what was your life like earlier on before you realized they had these gifts? Like, what was your day-to-day life? What do you do for a living? Who are you? Things like that.
Well, I was training to be a homeopath when I was pregnant with Faith. And I think it was around the time that my son Tom was born that I actually qualified as a homeopath. So pretty much I had two young children, one baby, 2 years old at the time. And I was setting up my homeopathy practice and, what it's like setting a business up. I was busy and, life was just hectic. I was a mum. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mum, but I chose to work 1 day a week at the time as a homeopath while I set my practice up. And yeah, that was my life really, was, helping heal people with homeopathy, which to me meant the world. I just thought it was this most incredible natural therapy that had, I've seen it do so many wonderful things, both for myself and other people I knew. And and I was just a mum staying at home, looking after my children. Nothing spiritual was involved in my world at that time. It was all very much focused on babies and homeopathy. And then, as the children grew up, I mean, as I say, it was when Faith hit 4 years old that I discovered her gifts. But yeah, really right up until that point, life was just normal. And we hadn't had any experiences like many other families do. So there was nothing on my radar to suggest that my children were anything other than ordinary as opposed to extraordinary.
And that they are. Just having children alone is a gift in it of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really wanted to be that stay-at-home mom. I was the one that I was saying this actually to Faith this week because she doesn't remember so much of it now that she's older. But I was the one that planned the days outs and the play dates and the baking and all of that. I was really loving it. I love the craft. All the other mums are like, no, don't get the craft out. There's glitter everywhere. I was like, no, bring it on. We'll have the glitter. I loved all of that. So yeah, for me, that was my focus at the time. So yeah, this news was a bolt from the blue.
Right. So, well, let's talk about that then, because that is the main focus here with you sharing your story is about your children. What were the first experiences that you had with well, I guess it would be Faith first, correct?
It would have been. But, the weird thing about our story is she didn't ever really tell me what she was seeing. I found out through a really unusual means, which was totally meant to be divine intervention, I'm quite sure. But my mom actually had visited and loaned me a book My mum actually had visited psychic mediums in the past. She was really into that kind of thing. And I'd listened to her over the years and was always fascinated, but sort of equally terrified as well, and didn't actually want to go and see someone myself. But she'd loaned me the book, the Brian Weiss book, Many Lives, Many Masters.
Yes.
All about past life regression. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. She said to me, she was, I've got this book for you. Oh, yeah, okay. And I read this book and I just loved it. I devoured it. And I wanted to learn more about it. So there was, at the time being a homeopath, I worked from a clinic in our local village. And I contacted the resident hypnotherapist there to tell him about this book because I'd seen that he also did past life regression. I wanted to understand more about it. And I had so many questions for him about this whole topic. And he said, look, there's actually someone else I think can help you more. Let me get her to contact you. And it turned out to be a lady who was a psychic medium that knew him. And anyway, this lady phoned me and I was quite frightened. I wasn't quite sure, could she read my mind? What did she know? I really had no idea what she might already know about me. But she very kindly offered her time. She offered to come to my home and talk to me about, this topic that I was so interested in. And it was her that actually pointed out, by the way, do you realize your children are actually quite gifted? And in all honesty, I thought she was slightly mad. I thought, no, don't be ridiculous. They're just regular children. They've not talked about anyone in the room, or we just didn't have any of those stories at the time. So I found it really hard to connect what she was saying with the children I had. But we'd always known that Faith in particular was quite an old soul. From the week she was born, we have a photo of her, and someone said at the time, wow, there's an old soul. It didn't even really mean so much to me back then. I didn't really know what they meant. But she certainly was always very wise, always very watchful, quite reserved, very mature, just a very sensible child. With a bit of a twinkle in her eye as well, a bit of a sense of humor there as well. But so this lovely lady very kindly gave up many a day to help me and to teach me and to talk to me. She would bring items over to the house to try and show me what psychic mediums could do, holding colored objects, or she'd bring a mug over that somebody had drunk from to see if I had any gifts of my own. And, I had no idea what I was doing at all at the time. But it was fascinating listening to her, and it was a subject that I sort of half hoped would go away. Once I learned what I wanted to learn about the book and all that she could teach me, it was like, I describe it in my book, Raising Faith, a bit like living in the Matrix. The movie The Matrix with Keanu Reeves, where you sort of realize halfway through that the world you thought you had is actually not the real world, and there's a whole other side to it that exists. And I was at that crossroads where I thought, well, I'm not actually sure I want to take another step further forward and learn more about this real world, because actually it's quite scary for me, or whether I just sort of sweep it under the carpet and go back to normal life and pretend this is all very lovely but quite silly, and let's just not go there. And it really was that sort of moment of, oh, I'm not sure about this, but it wouldn't let me go. I guess my spirit guides were there saying, no, you have no choice in the matter. You will learn about this. And so, for me, it was inevitable. It was something I couldn't let it go. And it was also more the thought that my children were living this, whether I liked it or not. They were living and breathing this world, and I couldn't just leave them to it. I couldn't just pretend it didn't exist and leave them to it. It was something I just felt I needed to be there, as their mum, to answer any questions, to get involved if I needed to, or I don't know, to protect them if that was ever needed. I just really didn't know enough about it to know what it meant or what might be needed. But as a mum, your instincts kick in, and I just wanted to learn everything I could to help them.
Right.
So that's what I did.
So you grew along right next to them. You were learning what they were learning and experiencing with them, because you found out about their abilities at such a young age.
Yeah, very much so. So this lady helped me to start with, and she also ran her own psychic development workshops, which were really helpful too, because, you know, there would be a series of tables around the room, and at each table there would be different activities. And, you know, there might be tarot cards or rune stones or, you know, colored pencils and paper, and just all these different methods that could be used to tune into spirit and to work with spirit. And so she got me involved in going to these workshops. They were occasional, you know, didn't go to lots of them, just a handful of them, but it really gave me a flavor of what it was all about. And as I was learning more, I realized actually I had some gifts of my own that I just hadn't been aware of. You know, I was able to tune into things at those workshops. I was able to give the odd reading to people without really knowing what I was doing. I could draw things, you know, messages were coming through, and I could draw things that were incredible. There was one bit that just stunned me. I remember sat opposite this lady drawing with these children's pencils, you know, and I was giggling, thinking, oh, this is silly. What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing here. And I ended up drawing this little footballer with a red T-shirt on, and this pie and just random objects. And I giggled my way through this, feeling quite silly. And the lady said to me quite seriously at the end, well, you know, I run the under sevens or something football team for such and such a town. And yes, they do wear a red top like you've drawn. And I'm a baker by profession. And, you know, all these things meant something to this lady. And I was just stunned that there's me thinking I was being silly. And actually it was, you know, really clever. It was just amazing. And I'd gotten through my whole life without knowing I could do this. So, yeah, it was eye-opening. And so as I learned, I got braver in talking to the children about it. I mean, when I was first told about the children, it took me a good couple of weeks, actually, to pluck up the courage to ask Faith about it, because she was just 4, and I didn't want to frighten her, and I really didn't know what to think about it. I didn't want to confuse her either, and I wasn't sure that I really wanted to go there yet with her. You know, I just wasn't sure that raising this was the right thing to do. So for now, I was sort of looking into it on my own. But yeah, a couple of weeks later, I did go into her bedroom and I asked her about it, and she was just so not fussed. She didn't particularly want to talk about it. You know, there was no embellishing the stories. There was no attention seeking or anything like that. She just sort of shrugged her shoulders and really was more curious about why I was in her room asking her these questions. You know, this was not normal behavior for me. What are you doing in my room, and why are you asking these things? And yeah, she just sort of validated, there's people here in the room. And of course, I started to panic, thinking, oh my goodness, who's in this room with me that I can't see? But it was lovely. You know, she would explain that my granddad, who'd not long passed, was there with us, and that he visited both the children at night and would read them stories and play games with them. And you know, to her, this was just completely normal. And so, yeah, I was learning about what they'd been experiencing the same time as I was learning about the spirit world for myself. So it was a real eye-opener for me into a whole world that I knew nothing about. Yeah, so it was just amazing. But, you know, it was really at bedtimes when, you know, as you know, with spirit, it's easier for them to step in close when life is quieter, you know, technology shut down and the world isn't so busy. And so they would visit at bedtime in particular is when she would start to talk about it. You know, she would have had a bath and, you know, she'd be tucked into bed. We'd read a story, just usual routine for a young child. And then I'd see her watching. And I'd see her listening, and I realized after I understood what was going on that, oh my goodness. And
you started to pay more attention to her mannerisms. And
totally. And just suddenly, you know, things made sense. And particularly at bedtime, you know, she'd just be staring, and she didn't always want to talk about it. You know, sometimes I'd say, oh, you know, can you see someone? And she would just sort of shrug, and she didn't want to talk about it. And other times she would just nod and say, yes, there's a man there, or yes, there's a girl, or whatever, you know, and most of the time she was happy to talk about it. Sometimes she was too tired, but most of the time she would say, yes, there's a man or there's a girl. And I would ask questions, and I would just say, you know, tell me about them. Who are they? And she would pause, and she'd just literally pause, and you'd watch her, and she'd be focusing really hard, listening intently on what they were saying, and then just relaying bits and pieces to me about who they were. And she would experience this in so many different ways. Sometimes she could see them visually in the room. Sometimes she'd see parts of them, like the top half, for example. She wouldn't always see the entire physical body. Sometimes it wasn't even a physical body. She just knew who they were. She'd just see the orbs, I think, and she just knew who they were and just tune in. And then other times, particularly if it wasn't at bedtime, so life was busy, if it was in the middle of the day and I could sense they were close, she would confirm who it was, but she wasn't necessarily seeing them. She just knew that they were there and who it was. Or she would see words in a speech bubble to pass to me, things like that. So they had lots of different ways of communicating with us.
And through them communicating, what were they doing with her? Were they wanting her to relay the messages to get that information to someone else, or were they just wanting communication in general? I think a bit of both. I mean, I think generally they'd always been there. Her own spirit guides were there. There's a little girl that's been with her since she was born, who's her main spirit guide, and this little girl grows with her, so she is the same age that Faith is. And that little girl was often there. She would play with her, or she'd be there listening to stories when I was reading bedtime stories. She was just part of her everyday life. And then other times it would be my spirit guides that were there, and yes, they might have a message. They didn't particularly use her to get a message to me, as far as I know, from my spirit guides. But as the years went on, there were spirits that tried to get messages to me. But I only discovered that some years later when she wasn't sleeping very well, and it turned out they were waking her up at night trying to pass messages to me about remedies, like homeopathic remedies to give to people to help people here in the living world. So, but she didn't actually pass the messages on. That was the intriguing thing, is when I finally got to the root of why are you not sleeping very well? Well, they keep waking me up to tell me things to tell you. I was like, oh, what do they want me to know? And she's like, I don't know. I can't remember. So she wasn't really very good, but she wasn't actually doing that. She wasn't passing messages on. So we had to then just say, look, that's not okay. You can't, you're just little. You can't possibly be woken up in the night to pass me messages. Mm-hmm. So we put a stop to that and just said, look, no, thank you, don't do that. And we tried to just keep it to bedtimes, and throughout the day they would visit and we would ask them things, but generally it was at bedtimes when we'd have these conversations, if she was interested, or if she was wanting to. And as I say, sometimes she was too tired or didn't want to. But yeah, so I'd say most of the time it was spirit guides, or it was my grandparents, or loved ones that had passed. And occasionally it would be other guides that had stepped in, new ones that were visiting. And she would be surprised, there's someone new in the room, and she would tell me who it was, and then it would transpire why they were with us, and it's someone to come to help you with that thing you're going through right now. Because our spirit guides, they come and go through our life according, some of them stay for good, and some of them just sort of come for periods to help us learn different lessons. And so, yeah, sometimes there would be new spirit guides, and we'd learn about them, and then they'd move on, or they would be less relevant in our life, further down the line when we dealt with whatever that was. Well, how exciting once you started realizing what was going on, to have those messages and the validation shared with you through those experiences. I'm sure it didn't come easy, though, and we'll get more into some of those details. We are going to take a quick break, though, you guys. And when we get back, we'll continue to visit with author Claire Waters right after this.
Is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store. You know, food was different 60 years ago. It was minimally processed, free of pesticides. It was nourishing and healthful for your body. Today, GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, and heavy processing have depleted the nutrition of our food supply, which takes a toll on our health and energy. It's harder than ever to get the right nutrition. That's what Life Change Tea is meant to counteract. Our specially blended, powerful herbal formulas can give you more energy without caffeine. It's a mild cleanse, a mild daily detox. A good detox can help revive and bring back the energy of your youth. GetTheTea.com is the website. It'll cleanse you from the inside out with this herbal proprietary formula. Go to GetTheTea.com. There's no fillers, no GMOs. It's organic. Not available in stores. You must go to their website, GetTheTea.com. And their supplements are a great way to maintain your health. Read the testimonials on the website. Go to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
This is Richard Dolan, and I want to brag for just a second about the incredible authors I publish under Richard Dolan Press. Some of the most innovative and well-researched books in the field of UFOs and beyond that you'll find anywhere in the world. Incredible UFO encounters, the cover-up, the experiences by ordinary people, Russian UFOs, psychic phenomena, consciousness, synchronicities, and owls. Yeah, it's all there, and it's all fascinating reading because I would never publish a book that isn't. To learn more, go to richarddolanpress.com.
Join me, George Norrie, in Indian Wells, California for the 7th Annual Contact in the Desert UFO Conference, May 31st to June 3rd. Contact in the Desert is an epic weekend of adventure filled with exciting explorations into ancient aliens, human origins, crop circles, UFO sightings, disclosure, and the newest evidence of ongoing contact. This amazing weekend offers over 50 lectures, 40 workshops, 8 exciting panels, special events, and a luncheon that I'm hosting. Contact in the Desert also features leading experts including Giorgio Tsoukalos, David Wilcock, Linda Moulton Howe, Michael Tellinger, Eric Von Daniken, Doc Wallach, and many more important researchers and scientists in the field. Contact in the Desert is your place for inside information. Join us at thecontactinthedesert.com to get your tickets today. It's time to make contact. That's contactinthedesert.com. Don't miss it. Contactinthedesert.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
Welcome back to Soul Wanderings, hosted here on KGRARadio.com. And we're wandering with our guest this evening, author of Raising Faith. Her name is Claire Waters. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Before the show, or before the commercial, actually, you had mentioned that you had to define communication with spirit, with your daughter, so they weren't waking her through the night. How did you go about doing that?
I just asked, actually. So because, I couldn't actually see them, I just knew they were there. So I just, every evening I knew the room was filled with spirit. I knew our spirit guides were there wanting to talk to us and work with us. And I would just say to them, in fact, I actually said to Faith that I wanted her to ask her spirit guides to stop them coming in the night. I said to her, if you don't want this to happen, then you just ask them, you explain what's okay and what's not okay, and just say to them, look, please, can you not wake me in the night? And, I would ask myself as well, but that didn't happen for her. But, also it was partly trying to teach her how to manage her gift and to realize that she could ask, she could say what was okay and what was not okay for her. And that's really how we've done it over the years, is just trying to teach her how to manage her gift, how to talk to her own guides. I mean, I think she was already talking to them anyway, but being so little, she wouldn't necessarily have taken that assertive role in dictating what was acceptable to her or not. You know, she would have just played with them.
Right.
So yeah, just setting some boundaries really as to what was okay and what wasn't okay. And so I think it did get much better then. You know, she wasn't really being woken in the night the same way as she had been. And I wasn't getting those messages anyway, so it wasn't working, whatever they were trying.
It was for no purpose.
Yeah.
It really is, or I should ask, is it really as simple as speaking to your guides or spirit, if you're able to do so, and communicating to them your needs or different ways in which you'd like them to communicate with you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think even if you don't think you have any psychic abilities, you know, every one of us has got spirit guides. Every one of us can talk to them whenever we want to. You know, we can ask them for help. We can ask them for guidance. We can ask them for a sign. And if you're looking, you know, there will be a sign. So it doesn't really matter whether you believe you're gifted or not. You know, we've all got the spirit guides. We all have the ability to talk to them and to ask. And it's just a matter of being open-minded and aware of the changes, the little shifts around you, you know, the little signs that might be coming through. And it might be as simple as a piece of music that means something to you as a sign to say, yeah, I'm here. In fact, just this evening, I had a challenging day today. And just this evening, I went into our living room here and the lights started flickering. And I knew straight away that someone was there. And they don't often use lights to do that. They just tell me they're there. But on this occasion, it was lights flickering. And I asked a question in my head and I just said, oh, is that a spirit guide? And the lights did not flicker. I was like, is it someone else? And then the lights started to flicker. And I'd actually just been writing an article about an unwanted visitor. So I thought, oh, crumbs, here we go. I've got another one. Okay. And I thought, oh, no. But actually it wasn't. And then I felt I have a gift of touch where spirit can touch me on different parts of my body to announce that they're there. And I have a different location for different spirits that I'm familiar with. And there are visitors that I don't know that touch me in different places. And I think, well, I don't know which one that is. But on this occasion, I knew it was my maternal grandmother, loud and clear. She was pulling on my ear like she normally does when she visits. And the lights were going. And so I was like, oh, okay, it's not a spirit guide because it's actually my grandmother. And then the lights started getting very busy. And actually, as I sort of called to my husband, I said, oh, my nan's here. And he came in the room and the lights started going bananas. And I was like, well, she's obviously very pleased. She's got through. She's got her message across that she's here. She knows I've had a difficult day. And it was just lovely. You know, it was just her trying to validate she's there. She's still with us. She's, you know, she knows when you've had a bad day. And it's the same for every one of us, gifted, you know, whether you know you're gifted or not, it's completely irrelevant. You know, we all have those loved ones in spirit who are still there with us. You know, they know we've had a bad day. We've all got those spirit guides. And yes, you just talk to them like you always did. You tell them about your day. And if you sit quietly, you know, you can meditate, or if you're not into meditation, you can just sit quietly and just listen. And, you know, the ideas, the feelings, the general, you know, when you write in a journal, you kind of sort your own problems out, don't you? You're writing down and you're going through options and you're explaining how things feel to you, and you come to your own conclusions and you come up with these ideas that help you out of the pickle that you might be in or the difficult time that you might be in. And, you know, that is often the way that spirits step in and guide us. So, you know, if you can allow yourself the time and space to sit and just process that and to listen and to talk to them, the answers that you get that come to you will often be from them or from your higher self guiding you. So every one of us has the ability to do that. It doesn't have to be an obvious, you know, I'm talking to spirit. It might feel like it's just your own ideas, but it's still them helping.
That's very comforting to hear.
Yeah, it is. And when you open yourself to the possibility, it does become so comforting, so lovely to realize, goodness me, they are there. And they've probably been trying to get your attention for such a long time. They'll be so delighted when they finally do, when it's finally acknowledged. I remember my grandfather, I hadn't heard from him since he died, and it must have been a good, I don't know, 16, maybe more, I can't remember now, but it was a long time, many years, many years. I hadn't heard from him. I'd heard from other loved ones that had passed, but not this particular grandfather. And I walked into my bathroom one evening and was hit by the smell of his Brill cream, you know, that sort of old-fashioned shaving cream. And it was the first time I'd smelt that smell in years. And I walked in and was like, wow, that's incredible. And it was such an obvious smell of my granddad. And I just was so excited. I mean, I was kind of dancing around the room because I knew he was there. And he would have been so pleased to know that finally he got through. You know, finally I acknowledged. He's probably been there all along, but it was the first time I'd actually smelt him and, you know, had that kind of sign that it was him. And, you know, smell is one of those ways that spirit can communicate with us. Music is another way. Lights flickering, it as in this evening, you know, there's so many different ways they will use to try and get your attention. It really is just a matter of being open to the possibility and you know, wondering, oh, could it be? And often it will be, you know, particularly music. You know, you can be playing a song, or, you know, music comes on in the car and you think, oh, interesting. And you question, oh, you know, it used to be my nan's song. And it's like, yes, that may well be your nan visiting you and trying to let you know that she's there. So yeah, it's, you know, it's just being open to it, really.
It is important through my own personal experiences to really do take that pause and listen, or pay attention to what's going on around you, because those songs do come on. Or if you are defining that communication, saying, if you're here with me, like the lights, or, you know, I want to see a butterfly today, or whatever that looks like, to validate that they're there with you. It really is just tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just being open, isn't it? Just being accepting that it will be little signs like that. You know, it doesn't have to be a full-blown, there's a spirit stood in front of me in the room. You know, it's the little signs, it's the smells, it's the pieces of music. It's just the little tiny signals that you think, oh. And animals, that's another one. You know, certainly for me, my dog's always staring at something I can't see in the room, and they're there all the time. You know, he sees them. And, you know, many animals do. So again, just trusting in that, just recognizing that your pets are seeing them. And yeah.
So you've come a long way yourself personally, learning about these abilities of your children and doing that research and really experiencing what they're going through. You've developed and honed in on your own abilities. So you have a house full of people who are able to communicate with spirits so easily. How does your husband feel about everything, and is he able to do the same?
No, he thinks we're all slightly mad. No, he kind of watches us and thinks, really? It's just, he really struggles to get his head around it. You know, he's okay with it. He's fine. He just isn't quite sure he's a believer. It's not that he's a disbeliever. He sits on that fence, and sometimes, I mean, he'll gladly listen. You know, like this evening when my nan was visiting, he'll come in and he'll watch the lights going, and he sees it all. But, well, it's probably a fault in the electrical circuit. You know, there's going to be another reason all the time.
It's logical.
Yeah, definitely. It's not. It's just he's not there, and that's fine. That's fine, but. Yeah, so no, he kind of watches from afar, but yeah, we do all have our ways of communicating, but they are all different. And that's the other thing I think that's really important to share with people is, you know, to be psychic or to be a psychic medium or to be gifted in any way on that sort of level, everyone's gifts are so different, you know. You don't have to visually see someone in the room to be a psychic. You don't have to be able to hear their voice in your head to be psychic. There's so many ways of tuning in and just being intuitive to the energies around you, and all of that is a psychic ability. And, you know, Faith can hear them and she can see them and she can have a full-on conversation with them as if they were there living in the room with us. Certainly when she was younger, that was more prevalent. You know, now that she's at secondary school, which is, you know, teenage, she's 14 now, so it's a busy school that she's in. Things like that are much harder for her now. But she is still there, very much so. She can still do that when she chooses to. It just isn't so much part of her every waking minute as it used to be when she was younger. And Tom, again, he's got his own ability, so he senses them very much so, very in tune with energy and senses. I mean, if I'm off peak, if I'm worried about something or upset about something, he will feel it the minute I feel it. You know, it's incredible how he tunes into energy, and he will know in a millisecond if there's someone there. He'll feel them and he'll start to feel a bit nervous, and he tends to be more fearful because he can't see them. He just feels them there. He's a little bit concerned about, there's someone here, who is it? You know, and it's unnerving for him. And as Faith says, it is. I mean, just recently he had an experience where, you know, he'd gone to bed and he sort of came flying out of his room into my room and said, Mum, there's someone in my room, which, you know, there often is, to be honest, in our home. But I said, oh, yeah, okay. What? But he went, no, there's something not right. He said, it doesn't feel right. And I thought, oh, no, what's this going to be? And, of course, I can't see them. I can't really do much with that. So I just said, all right, well, let's ask Faith because she'll be able to see them, talk to them, whatever. So in she drops into his room, and he stayed in my room with me, and she went in there by herself, and she came out and she gave me a bit of a funny look, and I thought, I'm not sure I like the look of that. And she was very careful how she relayed this to him, but she said, no, I can see why you're worried, Tom, she said. In actual fact, she said, I've never seen this before. She said, but there are people stood all around every wall of your bedroom. There is literally a sea of people stood around your room. And she said, I don't know who they are. And I said, well, what do they want? She said, I don't know. Well, and she said, but it's okay. She said, all of our spirit guides are there, and they were all here now. Once, you know, she was with us talking to us, she said, they're all here. She said, none of them are worried. She said, they're not jumping up and down. None of them are worried. So they're absolutely fine. They're moving them on. They're just clearing them now. They're all leaving via the window. And it was just this like mass exodus through his bedroom window with all these spirits leaving again. And it was the most extraordinary thing. But he'd obviously sensed that this wasn't just a random visitor. This was, you know, a room full of visitors that had come to see him in particular. And, you know, I was puzzled about, well, why Tom? Why are they visiting Tom? And I could tell, I said to Faith, you know, what do they want? And she just sort of looked at the floor sheepishly and looked away and said, I don't know. And I thought, well, you do. But of course, Tom was there, so I didn't want to push it. And later in the evening, I sort of went into her room and I said, you know, you do know why they were there, don't you? And again, she looked at the floor and just nodded. And I said, you allowed to tell me? And she just shook her head. So I find that extraordinary that my daughter, you'd think as a parent that you get to know more than your child does, but actually I don't. It's not my gift, it's hers. And she obviously has this gift for a reason. Mm-hmm. She's party to things I'm not party to. You know, they share with her things I'm not allowed to know. But she knew why they were there, but she couldn't tell me. I still don't know the answer to that one. But, you know, that's why I say it carries quite a responsibility, I think, when you are so gifted and you are trusted with this kind of a gift.
Right.
Is that she's managing that by herself. And largely, you know, with the help of her spirit guide, she's always managed that by herself. You know, I'm here. I like to know, but it's not always my place to know. You know, it's not like I'm, you know, normally as a parent, you kind of know more than them, don't you? Or you think you do anyway. You know, you feel like you're in charge and you know, you'll let them know what they're allowed to know. But actually, in this case, no, she's given this ability that I don't have, and it's not necessarily for me to know everything. So
is that her choice that she chooses not to share with you, or do they ask her to keep it in confidence?
It's certainly the way it's suggested to me is I'm not allowed to know. So I believe, and I think that is the case. I think there are some things that she's not allowed to share with me. I think they do trust her with things. And she is a very reserved girl. She always has been. So, yeah, I think she does carry the weight of that responsibility sometimes. But, you know, she's coping very well with it, given that, you know, at 14, there's so much other stuff to deal with.
Right. Especially, yeah, that's a fun age for children, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So obviously all types of spirit are visiting your children and yourself. What about the darker energies? Obviously, they're going to make an attempt to visit.
Well, up until the point of writing Raising Faith, the only darker energy that we'd had wasn't so much to do with our gifts or the children. It was more to do with my own work as a homeopath. We have since had a visit, which actually Faith had a visit. But if I start explaining to you about the first kind of dark energy we had was, as a homeopath, I'd been told, obviously since finding out about the children, I then visited a psychic medium, and he'd said to me, look, I don't know what kind of work you do, but your patients are draining the life out of you. You need to start grounding and protecting better. And I sort of listened, but I didn't really consistently apply that advice because, I didn't know any other homeopaths who grounded and protected, and I just couldn't see that it was necessary for me. And so I sort of largely ignored that. I did buy a crystal necklace, and I kind of gave that the job of protecting my energy, but I didn't particularly ground and protect myself every day. And on one occasion, this patient came to me for help. I've no doubt she was sent to me to teach me a very important lesson. And she was a pretty scary lady. She was very feisty and very assertive and really quite a force to be reckoned with. And, she made it clear when I first met her that she'd already taken several therapists to court because of their conduct. And I thought, crumbs, this is scary. But I had this urge to help her. I felt I could help her, and I did help her. But in the process of trying to help her, I started to feel really ill myself. And then I went back to this psychic medium I'd seen years before, who explained to me that I had an attachment that I'd picked up from this lady. And he said to me at the end, after he removed it, that was the second scariest attachment he'd ever seen, second only to a lady from Africa who'd had voodoo done on her. At which point I kind of gasped and said, oh my goodness, this lady I've been treating had voodoo inflicted on her. So obviously it was the same sort of dark energy he'd seen before, and it had jumped off of her onto me because, as he put it, as a light worker, it could do a lot more havoc on me with all the patients I was helping than it could on one lady. So it gave this thing access to so many more people. So it was my responsibility to ground and protect better and to make sure that didn't happen again. And although that is something I have taught the children, they are children at the end of the day, and they don't always do these things. They don't always remember. They don't always think it's necessary. And last Halloween, we had an incident, the only incident, I might add, we've had over the years at home that's been in any way frightening. All of our visits for 10 odd years have been just lovely. But on this one occasion, Faith said to me, there's a lady in my bedroom. It was actually late at night, and I was sort of tucking her into bed, and she said, there's a lady in my bedroom. And she was staring at this corner of the room, this lady in the corner. And she said, I don't like her. She said, she's really quite frightening. And I said, oh, well, and it just seemed odd to me. We'd never had a frightening visitor before. And I was a bit puzzled by the whole thing. And are you sure? Well, she said, I don't know. She said, she actually looks like a character in the book that I'm reading with school. It was part of the national curriculum here in the UK to read about the Lady in Black. And she said, she looks like this character in the book. And I said, well, that seems a bit odd to me. I said, maybe it's your imagination, or maybe, I don't know. I couldn't quite connect the dots and figure out, well, why would this lady in the room look like the lady in the book? Maybe it was more than just your gifts and, your imagination's kind of combining the two. Maybe, she said, and I kind of forgot about it. And some weeks later, she mentioned the lady again. I said, she's still there? She said, oh, yeah. And I thought, that's really odd. But again, there was nothing particular. There's no red flags going up for me. Nothing really got my attention and made me think that I needed to intervene. And then we got closer and closer to Halloween. And I don't know, a week or two before Halloween, I was leaving Tom at home while I took Faith to a sports club that she was going to. And I just literally just left the house, and Tom phoned me and said, Mum, can you come back and get me? There's someone in the house. I'm really scared. And I could tell from his voice, he was absolutely terrified. And he said the dog was going nuts as well, barking his head off. And something was upsetting the dog and that I needed to come and get him. So, I shot back a bit quick and okay, poor dog's going to have to stay there, but you can come with me. So sort of took him. I was already late, so I sort of just threw Tom in the car, and then we zoomed off. and got back to the house, and I'd actually forgotten about this. I just, I'd got back to the house, forgotten all about what had happened before we left. And as we walked in, Faith said, "There's something not right." I thought, oh, I said to her, "Don't say that. It's, when a regular child says there's something not right in your home, it's scary enough. When she says that, you kind of think, uh-oh." And I said, "What do you mean something's not right?" "I don't know." She said, "There's something not right about the house." Oh, that's really, of course, by this point, Tom's practically climbing the walls. He's quite scared, and he can't see anything, but he can feel it all. And, I struggled to get either of them into bed that night. This was only, 6 months ago. It wasn't long ago. And I kind of wandered around the house saying, "There's nobody here. There's nobody in any rooms." I checked all the cupboards, all the usual stuff you do, check under the bed.
Right.
There's no one physically here. There's nothing to worry about. We're fine. And I really didn't pick up on it. I just didn't pick up on anything myself. For whatever reason, I didn't. And anyway, I think, a few more nights went by, and then I was sat downstairs. The children were getting ready for bed, and Faith came flying down the stairs, and hands clamped on her ears, screaming at me, "Make her stop, make her stop." She's screaming at me. And I said, "Well, God," I was just stunned. I've never seen this behavior in her ever before. Mm-hmm. Never had this kind of an experience before. And the minute that Faith came in the room, the energy in the room completely changed. The lights started flickering like something out of a horror movie. The energy changed. It felt, my guide stepped in close. And I knew that we were protected, but I could absolutely feel the difference immediately. And it was frightening. It was scary. And, she was screaming, "Help me, stop her." And I was, oh my gosh, this is awful. What is going on? And I was like, okay, what is she screaming at you? And she said, "She's screaming a date at me." And she did tell me the date, but for the life of me, I can't remember it. But it was a few weeks after Halloween, the date that she was shouting. So it must have been some kind of a deadline or something that was approaching for this lady. And I said to Faith, can we talk to her? Let's have a conversation with her and understand what it is she's trying to tell us. "No," she's saying to me, "I don't want to talk to her. She's too scary." And I'm thinking, what am I saying? I'm asking my child to speak to this scary spirit. Right. And I was like, no, hang on. I can do this myself. I don't need to go through you. I can talk to her. She can hear me. I said, okay, fine. So, you kind of man up, don't you? I'm the parent in the room. You have to man up. And okay, I can do this. And I just said out loud to this lady, I said, "Look," I said, "I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want, but I assume that you need my help. And I promise you with all my heart, I will absolutely help you. But please, you have to back off. You're terrifying the children and me now. Please just step back and I will get you all the help you need." And everything went quiet. Everything stopped flickering. And I said to Faith, is she listening? Is she happy with this? Is this okay? She said, she's gone. She'd literally stepped back the minute I promised her help. And she obviously knew that I meant every word of it. Mm-hmm. And I did. I contacted my friend, Stuart Keyes, who's the celebrity psychic medium. He's written the foreword to my book, Raising Faith. And he was actually on holiday with his family in the middle of the Caribbean somewhere on a boat, so on a ship somewhere. So it took me a day or so to get hold of him. And I'm messaging him going, "Help! Mm-hmm. We have a situation." And he messaged me about saying, "It's fine. I can see why you're frightened. On a scale of 0 to 10, she's right up there at the top. But she doesn't mean you any harm. I'm sending Solomon," which was his guide, to deal with her and help her move on. And literally within sort of 24, 48 hours, the house was a completely different place. I think the next day after school, actually, Tom had come home, gone to go upstairs and had seen, I'd kind of kept a lot of it from him. I didn't want to frighten him, but I hadn't particularly told him what was going on. But he sort of ran downstairs and said, "Mum, I've just seen a lady run from your bedroom into Faith's bedroom." And I said, "Oh, it's fine. She's not here to hurt us. She's actually trying to stay out of your way because I've asked her not to frighten you. She's a nice lady. She doesn't, I knew if she backed off when I asked her to and had gone quiet, she certainly wasn't there to terrorize us. She was really just trying to get our attention."
Wow.
And she did. She was moved on, and she was, I think many of the souls that come, yes, they can seem frightening, but I think on many, many, many occasions, they're just stuck and they need our help to move on. And for us, this was a really good experience in understanding that. And, I've since spoken to other people and interviewed people who do spirit clearance and help people move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an important thing to understand, because so many people can be frightened of spirit.
Right.
And so many people may have those experiences where they've seen a ghost or they've experienced something moving or felt something. But, usually they are just stuck souls that are caught between our world and the spirit world, and they just need help moving on. And that's not a difficult thing to do when you know what you're doing.
Right.
They really just need to contact someone to help them.
What an incredible story. And you stood up for her. Go mom, go team.
I was quite proud of myself, actually, because normally I probably would have run a mile.
Because you all were so scared.
Yeah, but actually, as I say, you're the parent in the room. It's like, there's no running away. You're going to have to face this one.
Thank you for sharing that. You are listening to Soul Wanderings here on KGRAradio.com. We're going to take our quick break, and we'll return shortly to wander some more with our guest, Claire Waters.
Hey, KGRA family, are you looking to show the world that you're a true believer? Well, shop now at thesaucerbrand.com. They've got something for the whole family. Jackets, hoodies, shirts, and hats, and so much more. And now's your last chance to use promo code KGRA for $10 off when you spend $50 or more at thesaucerbrand.com. Your new source for official and authentic ufology-inspired essentials made right here in the USA. And don't forget, use promo code KGRA at checkout and get $10 off when you spend $50 or more. Believe in style and elevate your craft at thesaucerbrand.com. And for those of you going to Contact in the Desert and Alien Con this year, Saucer will land at CITD May 31st through June the 3rd, and look for them at The Alien Con June 21st through the 23rd.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Whoa.
The moment my son saw a redwood tree.
It's huge!
Is the moment I knew that for him,
You can't even see the top of that thing.
even the sky has no limit.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go. Your moment is out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
This is Richard Dolan, and I want to brag for just a second about the incredible authors I publish under Richard Dolan Press. Some of the most innovative and well-researched books in the field of UFOs and beyond that you'll find anywhere in the world. Incredible UFO encounters, the cover-up, the experiences by ordinary people, Russian UFOs, psychic phenomena, consciousness, synchronicities, and owls. Yeah, it's all there, and it's all fascinating reading because I would never publish a book that isn't. To learn more, go to richarddolanpress.com.
Now you have the inside contact for alternative talk radio. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
Hello, you are listening to Soul Wanderings on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, Salt Lake City, Utah, Hudson Valley, New York. You can find Soul Wanderings here as well as many other platforms for your convenience, such as iTunes, TalkStream Live, Spreaker, Spotify. I mean, just look, we're everywhere. We're everywhere. Make sure you guys check out the official KGRA Radio on YouTube. That's where the latest show archives are going. And I'm just happy to have you guys here. Thanks for joining us tonight. If you have questions, make sure you're in the chat room to ask those questions. Go to kgraradio.com/chat. We're visiting with Claire Waters this evening. She's the author of Raising Faith, her story of raising a child psychic medium. Welcome back, Claire, for the second half of the show. How does Faith feel about you writing a book about her abilities?
Well, when we first decided to do this, I talked to her about how it would help lots of other people, because that was ultimately the reason for it. And the story actually goes back further than that. So there's a psychic medium who's well known here in the UK called Psychic Sally Morgan. And my mum had actually been to see her for a reading years ago, before she was as famous as she is now. And she'd been told that I would one day write a book. And for years, I remembered this coming back from this visit, my mum saying, oh, apparently you're going to write a book one day. And I couldn't for the life of me think what I would ever write a book about. I assumed at one point it would be about homeopathy, because that's, I lived and breathed homeopathy, but no. And then one day I was sat at the end of Faith's bed after, talking with Spirit with her. And I just literally said out loud, sort of to the room, wow, I said, this is so incredible. We should write a book about this. And I literally just, oh my gosh, that's the book. I just knew straight away. It was like, that's what I'm supposed to do. And so for me, it was this feeling of, I'm supposed to write the book. They want me to write the book. It's not particularly that it was something that I had in mind. And I talked to Faith about it and said, look, the amount of things we've been through and all that we've learned, I said, there'll be so many other families out there going through this. And I also felt, as a homeopath and a practitioner, and all the years of experience I had in helping people and consulting with people really on their health and their life and how they could maybe help themselves, I just thought the combination of the two would be helpful, would be a way for me to get that message across in a way that could hopefully reach lots of other people. And but I think because I put it in that way to her, she was quite young, I don't know, maybe 10, 9, something like that. She was sort of old enough to understand. And she said, yeah, okay. And I promised her, she didn't want to be involved in it. She didn't want to be interviewed. She didn't want, her life changed as a result of it. But it was okay to write about it. And so I've largely kept her out of it. There is a section in the book where she's written some of her experiences. But otherwise, I've kept her out of it. The photos we've used are of her when she was younger, things like that, to try and help. Now, and she's 14 now, so now if I asked her what she thinks about it, she kind of rolls her eyes at me. It's not something she wants to be actively involved in at the moment. This is my project in her eyes. And in actual fact, when I first started writing the book, and I was hoping to write it with her because she'd always wanted to be an author. She told me before I even thought about this book idea that she wanted to be an author. So I said, well, this is a great opportunity. You could help me write this book. And I started to talk with her about it, but she went very quiet. And she just turned to me and she said, it's not my book. She said, it's your book. She said, you're supposed to write this on your own. And that's what she'd been told. And so I think she was disappointed that she'd been told that. So I was disappointed because I was actually looking forward to writing it with her. But no, she was quite clear this wasn't for her. This was for me to do.
Has she
as I say, sorry, say that again.
Has she read the book?
No, actually, she hasn't. And I did say that to her recently because a lot of the information in it, she doesn't remember. Because the messages that she brought through came through her, not from her. So often once she'd relayed a message to me, it didn't register with her. She didn't retain that information. It wasn't from her. It sort of just came in and it left again. She was the channel, the conduit between this world and the spirit world. So she won't remember a lot of what's in it. Which part of me thinks, oh, that's really, I wish you could. That's kind of sad in a way that you don't. But she does remember a few. Like, she remembers the Bobby visitor, the little sailor boy I've mentioned in the book, where we were sat having dinner one day and I could feel someone tapping on my head, but tapping so much it actually really hurt my head. And eventually I kind of rubbed my head and said to her, look, I'm sorry, but could you tell me who this is, because it's really hurting my head. And she sort of focused around the room and then settled on a spot between me and Tom and was like, oh, well, there's a little sailor boy stood there. So because that was quite different, the fact there was this little boy and he was in a sailor outfit, she will remember that. She mentioned him recently. But as a general rule, a lot of the experiences she just won't remember. They just, there were that many of them and they didn't really mean anything to her. So, but no, she hasn't read it.
While you were writing the book, did you have any, besides Faith and her experiences, did you have experiences with Spirit directing you in how the book should be, or what messages were meant to be shared?
Yeah, I think they're there all the time. Whenever I'm talking to you, they'll be here. If I'm doing any kind of spiritual work, including writing the book, they're right there the whole time. And there's no doubt in my mind the ideas that pop in my head are guided by them. They're not just my ideas. That's them saying, look, this one, think of this, think of this. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a team effort, to be honest. I do call it Team Raising Faith. This is not Claire's book. This is Team Raising Faith. They want this book out there. Okay. So yeah, there's a story. I had a new guide visit me at one point. Again, I felt them tapping on me in a certain area. And again, Faith said to me, yeah, there's a new man. And I said, well, what does he want? And she said, he's come to help you with friendships. And I said, oh, and actually I was struggling. I had an issue with a friend at the time. So it sort of made sense to me that he would be there, that I would have this new guide given to me to help me through this difficult patch. And I said to her, can you tell me his name? And then, could you tell me maybe how he passed? And she really not bothered. She just sort of looked up, looked at him and she went, big wave. And then she looked down and then she went, oh, and she realized as she said it, she went, big wave. She said tsunami. And, she literally said what she'd been given, which was big wave. It was then her own mind stepped in and went, oh my gosh, he means tsunami. So, she literally would just pass me what was given. And when I was writing the book, at the time of that, I had a feeling which tsunami it was, and I think I was right. But we'll never know, because when I actually went to go and include it in the book, they wouldn't give it to me. And so I took that as it's not appropriate to put that in there. What if that person's family read that? What if, it's not my story to tell. So, and I just respected that and was like, fair enough. It would have been nice to include it. It would have been nice and dramatic. It would have been a nice bit of validation for people out there, perhaps something that we could have used to go and check and just to validate, yes, there was somebody of that name in that tsunami and da-da-da-da. But it wasn't to be. They didn't want me to do that. So, I just left that. So, yeah, they guide it in that way. There's things that I'm allowed to know. There's things I'm not. And I do use a dowsing crystal sometimes. But to be honest, they can also tap me on the head for yes and no. So they'll often tell me yes or no, you're not doing that, or nope, we don't want that. And I just I trust that I'm just this instrument that serves where I can in the way that they want me to, in the way that I can, really. Mm-hmm. As so many of us out there do. I think it doesn't matter whether you're gifted or whether you're a healer or what, but either way, we're all serving, aren't we? We're all light workers. We're all bringing a message and healing to people, and we're all being guided. So yeah, I just trust in that. And yeah, if they say no, Claire, then it's no, Claire.
Duly noted. So with the book, though, you do share experiences, but it's more of a self-help book. Like you actually give advice.
Yeah, that's kind of where the practitioner side of me came in, and it is advice. It's a book really that I wrote partly to describe our story, which I think is really interesting. And we're not alone, and I wanted that in itself to bring comfort to other families or even other adults who are going through their own experiences. And it's just nice sometimes, I think, to read someone else's story and think, oh yes, I can relate to that.
Another listener question, what is the most pleasurable experience you've had with your daughter? and also what is the worst experience just with these abilities?
Well, I guess the worst experience would be the frightening one, which I guess was the lady, but then she wasn't really that frightening. She was just trying to get our attention. So we've not really had anything that I would say was not nice. I mean, we've learned things along the way, like protecting our energy, because, you know, I've been affected by going to a supermarket or going even to a kid's party by not protecting my energy and coming home feeling really grumpy because I picked up the emotions of other people while I was there. And that's something Tom does really easily as well, both of us being quite intuitive and feeling energies so strongly. We're very open to picking up on the emotions of others. And so that's not been a very pleasant experience until the point we understood we can do something about that. You know, we can ground and protect to stop that happening. But, you know, the positive on that is we've learned from it, and that doesn't happen anymore because we do ground and protect. So there's things like that along the way that weren't very nice. But I guess in terms of a not very nice experience, it would be being frightened by spirit, which was just that one occasion. But again, with a good outcome. And I'm pleased it happened because it helped me not be frightened of the idea of a ghost or of a spirit visiting. And it also taught me how to help them move on if I want to. I have since learned that. And also just to understand you don't need to be so frightened, because most of the time they just need our help. You don't need to be frightened. So, you know, a lot of good has come out of those more frightening experiences for us. In terms of what's the loveliest thing that's happened, I mean, there's so many, but I guess just being able to communicate with grandparents or to have messages passed on or to be able to bring comfort. Like when my nan was still with us and my granddad had not long died, it was so lovely because I said to Faith in the car on the way to see my nan, would it be okay to mention to Great Nan about Granddad visiting you still? And because she was very private about this, even as a little one, and she said yes. And so we got there, and I mentioned to my nan, and my nan was delighted. She said, "Oh, lucky you," she said to her. "Oh, lucky you still get to see Granddad." And I said, "Oh, you know, could you tell Great Nan a bit more?" She was just busy colouring on the floor, you know, just sort of laying on the carpet, colouring in. And she said, "Oh, he's just walked in the room." And she just, you know, didn't know what it was we wanted to know, because again, to her, he's just sat in his chair, as he always used to be. And my nan, actually, I've written about this in Raising Faith, and my nan said, "Oh, yes, I do know he visits me." She said he rattles the teacups every night, because my granddad was forever making cups of tea for their visitors all the time. And she knew that when the teacups rattled in the evening, that was him making the tea as usual. And her walking stick would fall over because she was forever being nagged by him to get up out of her chair and exercise her legs because she had dicky knees and she didn't like moving them. And he used to nag her about it. So even when he passed into spirit, he was still there nagging her because he'd knock her walking stick over and she would know that was him going, "Come on, get up." So it was just lovely that they kind of had this connection where my nan knew he was there, and it was lovely hearing that Faith also saw him. And yeah, it was just lovely. It was just, you know, just really nice. And for me, it was just reinforcing again that, as with everyone that passes into spirit, they are just right there. And like with my nan, if you look for those little signs, you'll realize they're still there. So that was, you know, that's an example of the kind of lovely things. But there's been so many.
I would imagine that there would be. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, sometimes there was one, again, I talk about this in Raising Faith, where one of her spirit guides, I asked about him, and she was only about 4, and the first thing she said was, well, he died in a car crash, and that frightened the life out of me because she was 4, and we'd never talked about car crashes or people dying or anything in that sort of, you know, frightening way. And thinking, you know, understanding that she was so little and she was learning things like that, I wasn't sure it was entirely appropriate for her. But actually, as I mentioned earlier, she hasn't really hung on to any of that. She heard it, she relayed it, but she didn't take it on board. You know, she wasn't frightened by it. It was just me. Yeah. Well, and like you said, she's a conduit for the information, so she's not going to attach to the messages that she shares.
That's right, yeah.
Well, that's a good thing, though. It really is.
Definitely.
Are there ever moments where any 3 of you have a message that comes through when you're like at the grocery store or the library or wherever that is, that you feel prompted to share with someone else?
No. And I would say for myself and Tom, we don't particularly get messages for other people in that way. Faith absolutely can, but she chooses not to. She's never shared that with anyone. And she says that, you know, there's been occasions over the years when I know someone is grieving and I would love to hear a message passed to them. But again, it's not my gift. You know, it's for her to do that one day when she has the confidence, if that's what she chooses. Right. I just have to kind of leave her to it. But yeah, I would love to see that happen. There's no doubt in my mind she could easily do that. She sees them. Mm-hmm. You know, she'll often see people walking. We've seen people that were grieving walking along the street, and she can see people with them. And I would so badly love to say to them, look, you're not alone. There's somebody walking with you. But I don't have the gift that can validate that for them. I can't give them the evidence they would need to really believe what I'm telling them. And she has that, but as I say, she's just not ready to do that yet. So yeah, she would, but I can't.
Yeah. So she's not one to talk about her gift with other people. So many people don't know about her gift.
Most people don't know. In fact, she'd be fairly horrified if her friends knew about it. You know, we try and keep it pretty quiet. She's only ever shared it once with a neighbor when she was little, and he didn't believe her, and she was so upset by him not believing that great granddad was actually sat in the chair between them that she never told anyone again. She was really upset about that. And you know, we had a chat about, it's a shame because you want her to be able to be open and talk about it, but actually it's not necessarily easy to do that because people won't believe you, or they will, you know, I don't know, tease you about it, whatever. It's, you know, you feel excluded when people aren't supportive of it. And so we decided in the end it was easier not to tell people about it. So that was a difficult one for us to make that judgment.
Well, and it could be temporary. You never know. I know that I have found deep comfort in going to psychic mediums, especially during times of grief, for those messages or the validation that they're still here with me.
Yeah, I think that's why I think it's such a beautiful gift. I mean, what an amazing thing. I would love to be able to do that myself. What an amazing thing to be able to comfort someone that's grieving, to be able to pass the message on and validate their loved one is there. And I know, like you say, my mum had that experience, you know, as have I since, but certainly there was one that struck me. There were my mum's stepfather, who was very dear to her, when he passed. And she went to see a psychic, and she said, oh my goodness, she said, he's whizzing around me on a motorbike. And my granddad loved motorbikes. He restored them. So that was such a unique validation that he was absolutely in the room whizzing around her on a motorbike. You know, what a lovely, comforting thing to know he's still there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's what I love about this gift. It's such a beautiful ability to have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Anyone that can do readings in that way, just it's a beautiful gift. I mean, as I said, it comes with responsibilities. But,
it does, absolutely.
You know, used well, I think it's incredible.
And I do have to give kudos to you, because we were talking during the commercial break. A lot of people who have these abilities right from the get-go, that recognize them right from the get-go, because I believe we all have them. But you have completely supported your children, not only in having their abilities, but what they choose to do with them and allowing them to be them. And I just think that's really great for you as a parent and an example to other parents who are possibly going through these same experiences that you have.
Oh, thank you, AJ.
No, it's really awesome of you.
It's quite, you know, faith has led that as well quite a lot. I mean, there was definitely a point where I was enjoying myself so much listening to Spirit at bedtime and, you know, asking questions and learning so much. I loved it. But, you know, they got to a point where Faith got really fed up with it. and that was the point when I had to really pull myself back and say, you know, actually, hang on just a minute. She's just a little girl. You know, you can't keep doing this. You've got to back off a bit, and it's her gift. And so, yeah, I did. That's really when I stepped back and I've left her to it. So we don't have those conversations at bedtime. We haven't done for a few years. I know it's still there. It still crops up now and again from her. But I kind of had my own wake up call there. So she led a lot of that. But yes, certainly the learning about it all and wanting to be there for them. from the early days. Yeah, I'm pleased that's, I don't know, I'm just pleased that's how it turned out. That's how I went about it. But yeah, it's easy to step over that line, I think. And I, you know, as I said, she led me to the point where I realized, you know what, this isn't my gift, this is their gift. I just need to respect that and leave them to it and let them be children. So that's kind of evolved as in the latter years.
Well, you're doing a fantastic job, Mama. You're
Thank
doing
you.
great. So I can imagine that there are challenges, but I just think it's wonderful and beautiful what you've shared with us and your ability to allow your children to be them. We're going to take our last break for the evening, and when we return, we'll get to share just a little more time with Claire Waters. So if you guys have those questions, make sure you're hopping in the chat room. We'll be right back.
Hey, KGRA family, are you looking to show the world that you're a true believer? Well, shop now at thesaucerbrand.com. They've got something for the whole family. Jackets, hoodies, shirts, and hats, and so much more. And now's your last chance to use promo code KGRA for $10 off when you spend $50 or more at thesaucerbrand.com. Your new source for official and authentic ufology-inspired essentials made right here in the USA. And don't forget, use promo code KGRA at checkout and get $10 off when you spend $50 or more. Believe in style and elevate your craft at thesaucerbrand.com. And for those of you going to Contact in the Desert and Alien Con this year, Saucer will land at CITD May 31st through June the 3rd, and look for them at The Alien Con June 21st through the 23rd.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Join me, George Norrie, in Indian Wells, California, for the 7th Annual Contact in the Desert UFO Conference, May 31st to June 3rd. Contact in the Desert is an epic weekend of adventure filled with exciting explorations into ancient aliens, human origins, crop circles, UFO sightings, disclosure, and the newest evidence of ongoing contact. This amazing weekend offers over 50 lectures, 40 workshops, 8 exciting panels, special events, and a luncheon that I'm hosting. Contact in the Desert also features leading experts including Giorgio Tsoukalos, David Wilcock, Linda Moulton Howe, Michael Tellinger, Eric von Daniken, Doc Wallach, and many more important researchers and scientists in the field. Contact in the Desert is your place for inside information. Join us at thecontactinthedesert.com to get your tickets today. It's time to make contact. That's contactinthedesert.com. Don't miss it. Contactinthedesert.com.
We are the contact for alternative research topics. The Planet, KGRAradio.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soul Wanderings on KGRA Radio. I'm AJ Rasmussen, and our guest this evening is author Claire Waters. We're in the very last part of our show. It goes by so fast, wouldn't you agree? It amazes me how fast it goes. So, Claire, welcome back. I'm curious what you are wanting other parents to know that are experiencing these same things that you did. And if your book was a guide and a part of a guide in doing, like a teaching for them, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote the book for parents who didn't already know a lot about this subject. Obviously there are many psychic medium adults who go on to have psychic medium children, and so they would already have a lot of this knowledge anyway. But I also believe there's lots of families out there like my own who maybe they don't already know a lot about this stuff. Maybe they just recognize their children occasionally see somebody or hear somebody or talk about a lady or child they're playing with that maybe the parent can't see. I do think there's lots of these children being born into the world, and I'm hopeful that Raising Faith can be a source of information to help guide them through that. To help share our story and help them understand how we've experienced it. As I said earlier, there's a section in there from Faith herself about what she experiences, different ways that spirit can communicate with her, and some of the experiences we've had, really, and as I said, the lessons we've learned. So yeah, just hopefully a source of information to help people on a similar journey to us that possibly don't already know lots already.
Well, I'm very thankful that you wrote the book. I know a lot of people that I'll be recommending it to because of that. So you're reaching a huge audience, and it's a topic that very rarely has been discussed, but it's becoming more mainstream where people are talking about it. Yeah, and so it's a perfect time for you to be sharing this information with everyone.
Well, that's what they keep telling me. The amount of times I get told that message, everything happens in perfect timing, Claire. So yeah, I'm quite sure, they've guided this to happen at this point. I had a really interesting experience, actually. You might have seen it, AJ, if you were watching one of my Facebook videos, but because I posted about it. But I had an experience the other day about the clock. Did you see that one? Did you read about that one?
I didn't, no.
So I had an experience where since the book came out at the end of March, I've been wondering what I do to continue helping people, as a result of the book, because, up until now, I've been running my own holistic wellness business, mainly homeopathy, but incorporating nutrition and kinesiology and Reiki. And as you do, you sort of end up adding different therapies along the way that you've tapped into or that you've been drawn to use. And now it's a case of, well, now that I've written the book, I feel like actually my path is so much more spiritual than just holistic wellness. And so how do I use this to help other families? And so I was sat there trying to figure this out, and I kept getting messages left, right, and center, whether I pulled a tarot card type thing, or whether I got a message from a psychic on the radio or whoever. Everyone kept saying to me they want you to sit down and listen to them. They're trying to give you a message. And I was so crazy busy with the book release, I just wasn't doing what I should have been doing. Mm-hmm. And this one day, my publicist, Gav, said to me, Claire, just go take the weekend off. You're exhausted. Go sit down. So I did, but I didn't just sit down. I sat down with my book, like a journal that has angel wings on the front. It was actually given to me at Christmas, and it had a note in it from my mum saying, this is for your future business. And I thought, what's that then? Anyway, I sat down with this book, and I just sat there with my crystals, and I started thinking about what I could do to really help other families, other people out there, people awakening, people interested but not quite sure where to go or what to do or how to begin to learn anything. And I just started writing all of these ideas down. And I knew my spirit guides were there. I could feel them stepping in. This was not just me again. This was team Raising Faith, writing. And as I started doing this, the clock in my hallway started chiming really loudly. And my clock has not worked for over 6 months at all.
Wow.
It's not been wound up for months. It's not actually worked for months. And a friend and neighbor of mine had popped her head in. She knew I was having a tiring, difficult day, and she popped her head in. And she looked at me and she said, I didn't know that you had a chiming clock. And I looked at her and I said, no. I said, that chiming clock hasn't worked for a long time. And she just carried on staring at me, slightly spooked, and said, that's really quite creepy. And I was like, no, it's not. I said, it's really quite lovely. I said, this is spirit validating. They knew I needed a boost. They knew I needed some help that day. And that was it. That was the other thing, is I'd gotten off the phone with my publicist, as I said, and he'd actually said to me, Claire, your book is at number 7 and number 9 in the charts, and for the sake of Amazon algorithms, we really need it at number 1, Claire. And I was like, oh boy, I don't know what else I can do. I'm tired and bloody. Went and sat down, did my channeling, wrote my ideas. Clock starts chiming, and literally by that evening, I didn't know it at this point, but by that evening, 10 p.m., my book had hit number 1 on Amazon bestsellers list.
Wow.
And I had done nothing more. And it was really, for me, that was spirit validating for me that you're on the right path. This is what we want you to do. They were just giving me that boost and that confirmation that they're helping me. They're working here to make this happen. This is what they want to happen.
Right.
So it's just really lovely to think, wow, that you really do want me to do this.
I love the validation. That is just always like the biggest thing for me. Like, thank you for showing me you're here. Have you found that spirit also has a sense of humor?
Oh gosh, yes, for sure. Definitely. Yeah, they just do. I mean, I kind of have quite a good sense of humor myself. So I suppose I assume that they find me funny. So I do kind of laugh. And there's one incident in the book I talk about where somebody had told me that my main guide was a little Chinese man. And then one day I was talking about my guide that was a little Chinese man, and literally Faith just doubled up laughing. And I was quite embarrassed. I felt really silly. I was like, why are you laughing? And she looked at the corner of the room where my guide Will was stood, and she looked back at me and she said, what on earth made you think he was a little Chinese man? I said, well, someone had told me that. And she looked at him, and they were obviously both having a marvelous giggle about this. And it turns out, no, he was not actually. He was British, and he was from Devon, and he was drowned on a ship in the war. And he ran a little corner shop before he was put on a ship. So nothing to do with a little Chinese man. But so they definitely had a good giggle. So I sort of assume that Will has a sense of humor, and the poor man, he has to listen to me constantly. So I hope he's got a sense of humor anyway.
I believe he chose that.
Yeah, hopefully.
What are you personally doing now with your abilities outside of writing your book, Raising Faith?
I use my abilities mostly in my practice one-to-ones with my patients. So, I'm evolving my practice now to include more spiritual guidance as well as holistic coaching, because it's sort of made me realize Spirit have had me in training for years, unbeknown to me. They've been guiding me and training me up ready for my new role. And, for years I've told people I'm a homeopath, and so many of my patients have said to me recently, you know, you're not a homeopath, don't you? You do so much more than homeopathy. And I guess, you know, as I said, all practitioners sort of evolve and they incorporate other therapies. But yeah, for some years now, really, my consultations that I call homeopathic, yes, they do definitely involve homeopathy. But because for me, that realigns the energy systems, it realigns everything so that, you know, the symptoms that we might be experiencing can all settle down again, because I see those symptoms as just a sign, just a flag that things aren't quite in balance. But also, you know, you're realigning chakras, you're realigning energy, you're getting that person's vital force back, their energy comes back, they feel great in themselves. But it's also about coaching people through their life experiences and what's happening to them, and that job that's not serving them, or that relationship that maybe isn't the healthiest. And, you know, I guess I've sort of evolved into some life coaching, homeopathy, just lots of different bits of advice on nutrition and lifestyle, as well as the spiritual knowledge that I've gained. And I try and pass it on to people. And I find I attract a lot of patients who are, you know, open-minded to that. And so I end up sort of coaching people down the spiritual path as well as down the health path as well. So it's sort of all-encompassing. And that's kind of where I'm going with this, is sort of shifting more now into sort of holistic one-to-ones that help guide people on all levels, not just health, but yeah, health and spiritual. And I'm going to be setting up, I put a poll out recently actually to see what is it people need, how is it I can best serve people with the experiences and the knowledge that I have. And it seems that a development group for awakening your spiritual gifts seems to be something people are asking me for. So I wasn't sure if it was going to be focused on families raising psychic children or whether it was broader than that. And I think there's a need for both, actually. There's an awful lot of people who I think are interested in this topic, would love to understand more about it, would love to awaken those gifts, aren't quite sure how to go about it, you know, would like to learn how to maintain balanced health at the same time. And so for me, it's sort of all in the same bracket, you know. It's about holistic living generally, you know, and the spiritual side is a huge part of that for me. But yeah, so I'm going to be teaching people about their intuition and spirit guides and chakras and, you know, all those different elements that come into living that spiritual side of their lives, and sort of just bringing that into what they already do. But it will be something that, you know, that hopefully helps people who are at the very beginning of that journey awaken, if you like. So yeah, that's my next step. So that's all due to come soon.
Exciting. Did you see yourself going down a path like this?
No.
Even when you first realized that your children have these abilities, and did you realize you'd get so heavily involved?
Not only for their sake, not to share it with others, to be honest. So no, this is news to me. But this is, like I said, I sat down when that clock started chiming, and that was them going, "Yes, you finally got the message, Claire. This is what we want you to do."
Finally.
So,
listening.
Yeah, you're finally listening to us. So this is what they want me to do. And I guess, you know, you doubt yourself, don't you? I certainly doubt myself. I think, really? But there is so much there that I've learned. There's so much knowledge over the years, you know, hundreds and hundreds of patients I've helped with so many different things. And then when you sort of step back and look at it and go, wow, yeah, I guess actually I could be really helpful to some people out there. So yeah, it's just broadening really, and helping people on a more spiritual side now, which I'm really looking forward to. And there's personal growth in there for me, which will be really important, because we've all got to grow and develop our own abilities and grow personally. So yeah, it'll be really exciting. So that's all coming up really soon. It's evolving.
How is your community in regards to spirituality? Do you get a lot of support and a lot of clients that way? Or are you doing
not yet? No, at the moment, I mean, a lot of what I've been doing so far has been about the book, to be honest, and I'm only just really evolving but it's not just about the book anymore. It's sort of opening up into more opportunities to help people. So that is literally just happening now. It's early days.
Exciting for you.
Yeah, definitely. And as I say, it's not something I saw coming. I kind of went into this to write the book to help sort of teach other people what I'd learned through the book. And then all of a sudden the book's out there, the book's doing really well. And I'm thinking, well, okay, they want me to do something else now. What is the something else? And And this is what's popped out. So yeah, this is very much early days for me. So I'm literally looking into setting all of this up just now. So it'll be in the next few weeks. Hopefully there'll be something coming out on my Facebook page about this. So yeah.
That's so exciting for you and your family and your future clientele.
Yeah, I hope so. It is exciting. It's kind of, as usual, equally exciting and terrifying in equal measures because it's new for me, and it's just tapping into everything I've learned over the years to make sure that I can be the best service I can to people that are interested in this, that want to learn more, and helping people awaken. I mean, isn't that in itself just amazing to be in a position where actually I have that privilege of helping other people learn about this stuff that I know so much about, and that can serve them in their day-to-day life the same way my gifts have served me. We've all got these different gifts, and to be part of someone else's journey and opening that up and starting to use those abilities and hopefully go on and serve other people themselves, it's just like this, just massive beams of light, isn't it, going out all over the world to just light workers. That's what they call us, just helping others. So yeah, amazing.
It really is. I can relate completely. I didn't see myself going down this path that I'm on now, owning a healing center or even doing a radio show where we get to assist others on so many levels. It's neat where we are guided. It's really exciting if we just trust and allow the process. Everything always falls into place. It's such a beautiful process, and I just adore it. Like, I would never be talking to you if I hadn't gone down this path, and this is quite enjoyable for me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, likewise. It is, and that it is really lovely. And actually, that's what the book has offered me, as an opportunity to share this with other people. Because, as I said, for so many years, we've been very much on our own, keeping this a secret within our local community, and not really having that network. So it's actually been a real pleasure for me to be able to talk to people about it and share it and to hear other people's experiences. And I've met lots of psychic mediums with their own stories and their own children they've raised, and I've interviewed them, which I'm hoping to put out soon as well. So again, I can share that and just reassure other people of, you're not alone. There's so many more people going through this. And I do just think by sharing experiences, we can all learn from each other, can't we? And yeah, I know, it's been amazing.
What has been the most rewarding part of this journey of yours?
For me, I think I'm so proud to have a better understanding of people now. I feel like I've changed as a person so much over the years, both through my work with patients, but also learning about spirituality and the spirit world, to recognize why people do the things they do, to recognize why people react the way they do. And maybe we're not always having a good day. Maybe people do react, not terribly well sometimes, but I've learned to have a compassion for people that I'm sure was there all along, but maybe I didn't see it so much. I'm far less quick to judge now. I'm far more compassionate than I used to be. I've always been quite a caring person, I think, naturally, but I feel like I see people better now, and that's all really come about as a result of the spiritual gifts that we have, to understand people and how the world works. It's just, I just feel humbled, really. It's like I've been given an opportunity to see things that maybe not everybody can see, and I love that. I just think that's so helpful to me in the work I do, helping other people and to try and teach others that. Just the other day I had a teenage girl, and she's had a difficult time, and her parents have maybe not handled things in the best way that she needed. But, I said to her, we all get sent what we need, and you will have learned so much from the opportunities that's given you, as tragic and difficult as some of that has been. And it was actually, you mentioned forgiveness earlier to me, and it was one of those occasions when I said to this girl, the work that you now need to do is personal development work yourself, in learning to forgive your parents. They did the best job they knew how to do. And at the moment, she's carrying around a lot of dis-ease within her body, a lot of symptoms, a lot of ill health, because she's hanging on to the past emotionally. She's hanging on to what happened and how things were handled, and, the bitterness, the resentment, as we do as humans naturally. And I think there's work there to be done to forgive, the things that maybe weren't handled so well, because she actually would be forgiving herself and releasing a lot of that hurt and moving forwards on her life. And she's since emailed me within days to say she feels so different from her homeopathic remedy, which has obviously given her the shift she needed.
Yeah.
But then if you can use that shift with the knowledge of go out, go learn as much as you can, start meditating on forgiveness, start reading books that are going to help you understand more about your life and why this happened and you know, what you can learn from it. She's going to grow enormously, you know, and I'm sure she doesn't know what she wants to do yet with her life. She's going on to university next. But I think, you know, it wouldn't surprise me at all if one day she's a light worker herself, because she just has those, you know, I haven't yet met a light worker with an easy past, I say.
Right.
You know, you've got to have been through some of those challenges to be able to empathize and understand others. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's where her journey takes her one day. But she's got some personal work to do first to grow into that role. But yeah, it's just so lovely to be able to teach that to other people and help them move forwards and, you know, find their own path. And it sort of just opens up possibilities that maybe they didn't see before. So that's really lovely.
What a great way to end the show with you sharing that experience with us. Thank you very much. Real quickly, where can our listeners connect with you?
I've got a Facebook page, which is Raising Faith Book. I have a website, which is raisingfaith.co.uk. And yeah, the book's everywhere. The book's on Amazon if anyone is interested in reading the story and the lessons that I've written in there. But yeah, Facebook, I'm on Facebook a lot at the moment. That's where a lot of the things are posted. Yeah, so start with there, and yeah, you'll see lots of new things coming on very soon. There's lots going on in the background. I'm trying to get in place. So
fantastic. Yeah, I'm really excited to see where you go. I'm definitely going to be checking in with you and seeing all of the awesomeness that you're going to be experiencing and sharing with the world. And thank you so much for spending this time with us, and especially in the middle of the night. You're a rock star.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on your show and listening to my story. It's been lovely.
It has been. Thank you so much, Claire.
Pleasure.
Next week on Soul Wanderings, we welcome to the show Audrey Christensen. She's an artist and creator of Hey Be Fab. It's a textile art style that she believes by creating, she's embracing and helping you to embrace your inner spunk. And you can find freedom from the mundane. And she loves to challenge people to think beyond yourself and allow your inner playfulness to come out. You can find Soul Wanderings on all the main social media platforms, as well as soulwanderings.com. And be sure you're following all of KGRA Radio on all the social media like Facebook, on Stellar, YouTube, you know, all of them. Share with your friends and family, you guys. Let's have conversations with each other about all of the things. Thank you for your support and being here for another awesome live show. I wish you all well. Happy day.